roots from the channel, grassroots of our channel, okay?
Hmm.
Are you ready? I think you know what this is, so I'll say Canadian standard of living plummets lower, approaching the lost decade. And Canadian wealth driven by housing outpaced income by 13 times. And yeah, this is the grassroots of this channel, and we've been talking about the money laundering. The our major export is housing. We don't fabricate anything, and basically this is what's happening. And Canadians were warned about building a housing-based economy. Now they're approaching the lost decade, and we discussed this lost decade back in 2017 and 2018, and we were going through this through trends in the housing market, discussing the pitfalls and the downfalls, and people using their homes as ATM machines because they owned a home, and they were riding on this financial coattail, especially in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the blue states of America and the UK, have been riding off this productivity and of housing, and now we're going into the lost decade of stagnation. And on our channel, before you speak, Supreme, because we've spoken about this multiple times, we did talk about, I opened something else, I'm sorry, but we did talk about GDP and how housing and GDP, how Canada's GDP is propped up through housing, through leaving homes vacant, creating artificial shortages, blah, 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 blah. Go ahead, Supreme. You know this is a broken record on this channel, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny they're talking about a lost decade now, because you got at least one entire generation of young people who have already lost a decade, and in many cases probably two when you factor in the great financial crisis and everything that led up to that. There was a bubble led up to that too. I was a realtor for a brief period of time before that happened, and I definitely saw prices going to levels that I thought were, well, at the time they were unprecedented. And then everything kind of stalled out. It didn't crash like it did elsewhere, but in Canada, it just kind of stalled out. It was sales that dropped off the cliff. The prices didn't come down. So there's people now that have lost actually close to 2 decades already.
Yeah, because we've been preaching this for years now on this channel.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not last week.
Yeah, I saw write-ups from, and you might have pointed out some stuff too, like Better Dwelling and other things from like 2013.
Yeah.
Talking about the housing bubble at that time and how it was becoming unaffordable. But this is the thing, right? Everybody, okay, well, housing is too expensive. It's going to crash. It's going to crash. And then what are you talking about? It went up 20% this year. It went up 15% last year. Every year you say it's going to crash, and it just keeps going up 15, 20%. Yeah, in other words, it's going freaking parabolic. Like, this isn't the stock market where everything is liquid. Real estate operates on a time delay. You know, like, it takes a little while for things to manifest, and it doesn't really, people don't really realize it's stalled out until it's already been stalling out for probably 6 months to a year. I'm seeing videos on X, Better Dwelling, John Passalis, Steve Saretsky, people like that, from builders in Toronto that, I got framers that, they haven't worked in 6 months. Like, they're about to lose their homes. Like, home builders themselves, about the only freaking heavy industry left in this country, other than the people producing the raw materials to, build more housing, are biting it. They're stalled out. They're spun out.
People watching this, if they want proof, here it is. 3 years, 11 months ago, Canada's GDP is flat, but real estate outperforms. Mass exodus of youth of Canadians. That's what we're saying here. Mortgage debt passes 80% of GDP. Economic storm hitting. Major tax hike ahead and major exodus ahead. 3 years, 9 months ago. And great Canadian economic housing tsunami to affect everyone. GDP propped to housing. California. Major Canadian real estate debt passed 76% of GDP. Mass inflation to hit by 2022. Tax hikes ahead. That was 6 years, 9 months ago. We were reporting that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, page 1, housing. Housing is red hot and fueling the economy. And then page 38, youth exodus from Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't put that together. Like, literally, the future of your country is dying before your eyes. You're watching an extinction burst take place. While the youth of your country, are they going to live at home forever, or they're going to pack their bags and go somewhere? We're not being treated like a disposable afterthought. That's the end of Canada. It doesn't matter how many, doesn't matter how many people you pack into this place. The reason it got as prosperous as it was because of the people that built it.
Mm-hmm.
Canada's built. It's been built. Canada is full. If no one can afford to live anywhere anymore, and people are living in tents in every city over 10,000 population, your country is full.
Yeah.
You're done. You can close the doors now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every nightclub has freaking bouncers. Why can't a nation? This is ridiculous. Like, we got to get our house in order. This thing is out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's out of control. I'm not entirely certain that the people that own all these assets in Canada are really actually trying to destroy the value of their assets. I think they're just obsessed with cheap. There's probably some people in the nomenclatura who, yes, want to bring in more of certain groups at the expense of others, who change the multicultural mosaic a little bit, if you will. But it's wealth destroying in the end. It transfers wealth to large financiers and corporations, sure, but they're not the country.
Right. So let's just do a way back playback real quick on Exodus, because you mentioned Exodus, and let's see what we were talking about here. Edinburgh Exodus, sky high property prices. That's in Scotland 4 years ago. Melbourne vacancy rates nearly triples amid student exodus, because they were depending on foreign students in Australia to pay these exorbitant rents, and that fell apart. Toronto mass exodus is real. Food and fuel set to skyrocket, pushing out young families 3 years ago. Get out now. Toronto mass exodus, housing crisis. They will tax you to death. 5 years, 8 months ago. Canadian nurse leaving for Florida. Canadian brain drain and mass exodus is real. Affordability 6 years ago. It just keeps going on and on. Middle class mass exodus from all major cities. London brain drain and skilled workers 6 years ago. Canada's dying. It doesn't end. It just keeps going on. Ireland. We got everything like mass exodus. Goodbye Australian middle class 5 years ago. It just keeps going on and on and on. Alberta exodus. Blue state exodus. Amerifornia. It's one after another, supreme. And I don't know why I was so drunk on this and why I needed to warn people about this. It's happening now, but I don't know why I was so motivated to warn, because someone asked me, why'd you make all these videos for? What was the point? And I'm like, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to put a warning out there, No one really watched any of these videos, but people are saying it now, and the word is getting out, but who cares now? We could have fixed this 5 years ago.
Well, the prophet is without honor in their own country, as the saying goes, right? You bring this stuff up, people knock Peter Schiff because he talked about, inflation, hyperinflation and stuff like that. And Ron Paul, the libertarian, the Republican guy, warned people for years. And, Enoch Powell talking about unlimited immigration to Britain. Well, not all of those prophecies have been fulfilled, but they're on track. These aren't things that happen overnight, but they're happening. I think it's just kind of, I wouldn't call it karma. I don't necessarily believe in that particular, but it's like a witness. It's like, okay, somebody warned you. So
okay, here it is. You said inflation, right?
It happens.
Okay, you said inflation. Here 6 years ago. Hyperinflation ahead, money to lose 90% of its value. Wages are not keeping up with inflation.
Yeah.
It just one after another. No Canadian hires a Chinese-owned business. Global. Let's see what we have for inflation. I made a lot of inflation videos. Global housing crisis. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to see if there's any more here. There's lots of inflation ones. The great Canadian peso ahead. They're hijacking our currency. Buy gold and silver and food now. 8 years, 9 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? Somebody at that time would have said that you're crazy.
Like, they did. If you read the comments on that video, they think I'm actually losing my mind.
Yeah. You're Chicken Little, like the sky's falling, dude. Put away your tinfoil hat. Like, real estate went up 20% last year. What do you talk about? Food is food going up a little bit, but that's because of our booming economy and all of these new Canadians that we're welcoming in, right? And nonsense like this. And most of it is just narrative. It's just the narrative. It's okay, we're looking at the same events, but we're, depending on your narrative, you see it differently.
So
I mean, there's no question. This was headline news for occasional headline news for a long time, but it was always along the line of, well, of course, the price of housing is going up because of your red hot economy and the world wants to move Canada and make it even bigger and more prosperous. And the fact is that the children of the people that built the place, and their grandchildren particularly, are drowning.
And they're being shown the door.
And well, if they're not being shown the door, then they're looking for one, because
Or
they want to
made.
get on with their
Or made.
yeah, or dug or blew out a door. Yeah, just Shawshank Redemption, chip their way out of here, right? Pardon me, guys. Yeah.